In this video, I'm going to show you how I use Tailwind in Shopify, specifically how I use it with Cursor to build sections a lot faster. For context, the main idea behind Tailwind is that instead of writing custom CSS for every section, you're composing your styles directly in your markup using utility classes. So instead of jumping between your liquid files and a CSS file, everything lives in one place, which makes building and iterating way faster. And the key thing that makes this work is Tailwind's compiler. When you run Tailwind, it scans your theme files, your liquid, your HTML, your JavaScript, and it only generates the CSS for the classes you actually use. So even though it looks like you're adding a ton of classes, your final CSS file stays really small and optimized. This is especially useful in Shopify because normally you end up with really large CSS files that are hard to maintain across sections. With Tailwind, each section becomes more self-contained. You're styling things as you build them instead of managing a global style sheet. And this is where it gets really powerful with Cursor because AI is much better at generating utility classes than writing clean scoped CSS. So instead of debugging CSS, you're mostly just tweaking classes. Anyways, in this tutorial, you're going to learn how to set up Shopify with Tailwind. You're also going to learn how to convert your existing CSS into Tailwind so your sections are easier to maintain. And you're also going to learn how to generate Tailwind CSS styles using Cursor. So without further ado, let's hop into the screen. Alrighty, so the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to set up Tailwind inside of our current theme. So first things first is I am using Tailwind version 3 just because it writes CSS classes still a little bit better than Tailwind version 4. But what we'll want to do is run this prompt inside the terminal. So create a new terminal down below and then run this prompt. Then once that is done, we will need to create the postconfig.js file. So I'm going to copy this here and I already have, of course, this file created, but you'll want to paste it in here like so. Okay, great. Now the next thing that you want to do is configure your template path. So we want to add the path to all of our template files in our tailwind.config.js file. So what we want to do is create our tailwind.config.js file, and I will leave a paste bin to this in the description of this video. But essentially what this is saying here is we want, as we write our Tailwind classes, we want Tailwind to watch all of these different folders as we write our classes and then add those classes to a main style sheet. And the other thing that it says is that we have a few core plugins as well as a prefix. Now, I really like to scope my styles, so I use a prefig in front of all of my different Tailwind CSS styles, and I use U-, but you can use any prefix that you want. Once you have that done, you want to create a tailwind.input.css file under your assets folder. And inside of this file, you can drop in your base components and utilities. Now, I don't actually use base when I write Tailwind just because I strictly just want to use the Tailwind CSS classes for styling my sections, and I don't necessarily want to use any of like the base components or anything, which is really what the base CSS injects into our theme. So I really just roll with the components and the utilities, which just gives me, most of the styles that I need. But of course you can drag and drop in all three. Now, the next thing that you want to do is run your prompt for the auto prefixer. So if we go down below, we'll want to, grab our auto prefixer prompt, which I'll go up. I just did a quick test before this video. And for us, it is called npx tailwind css-i. And then in our assets folder, we're going to reference our input file. And then we're going to output any styles that we type into our tailwind.css file here, which if you haven't created, you'll need to create that as well. So I'm going to hit enter. Awesome. Then I'm going to go over into the section that I've been working on, which is my hero section. And inside of the hero section over here, I'm going to write my first prompt. Now, you could either use a cheat sheet online like so by just typing in Tailwind cheat sheet. But honestly, Cursor does a pretty good job predicting what kind of style you want to use with Tailwind. So for example, if I want to turn this hero section and use relative, which is in our hero section here, I can type in -u for our prefix that we added, and then relative, which is the class that I want to add. Then I'm going to hit save. We see the auto prefixer was watching this folder here, and this file specifically, so it sees that we want to add this u relative class. And now if we go into our tailwind.css, we notice that we have some styles that are imported in, and we have our u relative added in here. Now, obviously, this is an extremely arduous way to write CSS, and Cursor can actually do this a lot faster for us. And so I'm going to show you how to do that in a second, but you'll notice that this style isn't actually added in our theme yet. And there's one more thing that we have to do. We have to add this tailwind.css file to our theme.liquid file, which oversees all the other files inside of Shopify. So in the main head, you'll just want to add tailwind.css and reference the asset URL. Reference it as an asset URL, and I am preloading this file, but you don't necessarily need to. Okay, great. Now if we go back over into our hero section, let's convert this whole section here into one that uses Tailwind. So inside of Cursor, I'm just going to prompt turn this section into Tailwind, and I'm going to hit enter. Awesome. And as you can see, it works pretty dang well. So now we could either individually accept the suggestions or just hit keep. And awesome. So we see no change here, kind of. We need to add in our image back in. So I will do that, and we'll just style our text here. But now when we hit save, as you can see, the section looks exactly like how it did before with now our new Tailwind CSS styles. And as we can see, in our tailwind.css file, we have all of our styles added in, which this is really fantastic for once we start building more sections, because you don't want to start repeating CSS and bloating your theme with CSS. This is a really nice approach to keep the amount of CSS that you have down, to keep your theme really nice and fast. So back inside the hero section here, again, we see all of our Tailwind CSS classes added in. We have our dynamic styling added in over here, and we have this class here, which Tailwind did not have the styles for. But what we could actually do, and sometimes I'll just keep this, odd styles within the folder, but we also have the ability to remove this and then go into our Tailwind input.css. And I'll usually make a comment and I'll say base styles. And down below, I'll just add in the style that Tailwind did not include. And you have to remove the liquid before it, because it is only a CSS file. But now if we go over into our Tailwind style, we see base styles, and we have all of our other styles in. So this is just a way to keep your sections clean, but not necessarily mandatory. Now, moving forward, what do? Well, you can go ahead and keep building out sections like you typically would with divs, and using Cursor, you can tell Cursor how you want to shape the styles and so on using Tailwind, and Cursor will be smart enough to read over your folders and start to style your sections in. So for example, we could say add an accent line above the heading with Tailwind CSS, and hit enter, and we can keep these suggestions here. I'm actually going to just change this to black, or actually white, just to keep visual consistency, and hit save, just because that'll look a lot nicer, and refresh our theme. And there you go, we have our line. Now, obviously we can adjust it manually by changing some of the different variables that we have here, and either manually adjust it or keep typing prompts to Cursor to get Cursor to adjust it. But at this point, you should have a pretty good understanding on how to set up Tailwind, how to modify your current section so they can use Tailwind, and how to prompt new different components within a Shopify theme with Tailwind. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments if there's anything that you're interested in learning with Shopify and Cursor. But anyways, that's it for today, and cheers.